I've never really felt like I fitted in anywhere that I've lived in my life. I'm of mixed cultural heritage. My mother's Sri Lankan, my father's British. Although my father's quite antisocial and didn't really give me much idea of how to socialize and how to fit into British society. And so I went out into the world with a completely different set of cultural coordinates than the people around me, and I was often misunderstood, often considered rude and arrogant for just being direct and honest. I remember when I was quite young, I was bullied in school for smiling too much because I stood out, because this was meant to be a depressed, repressive town where, people aren't overly optimistic. And now I live in a third country. I live in Poland, which has nothing to do with either of the cultures of my parents. And I guess I realize, and I get reminded a lot, that I truly am an outsider. I have tried to learn Polish, and I'm continuing to try, but it's still a very, very different language, and I'm far from fluent in it. I know that even though most of my friends speak English, when they relax and they slip into Polish, I'm kind of like the family dog in that conversation, listening to words, picking up the odd thing that he understands, and just happy everyone's together, but not really able to take an active part in the conversation, but often loved nonetheless. But this role of the outsider, in some ways, it's important, even though it's triggering to a lot of people, because you think outside the box, naturally. But thinking outside the box is going to get you rejected a lot. It's going to get people pissed off a lot. Not that you're trying to do that, but you're just being authentically yourself. And yeah, you do think of other people's feelings, but not in a way that's going to avoid triggering them. But there was this quote by Alan Watts which helped me place myself, and I'd like to share it with you. He said, "If you awaken from this illusion and you understand that black implies white, self implies other, life implies death, or shall I say, death implies life, you can feel yourself not as a stranger in the world, not as something here on probation, not as something that has arrived here by fluke, but you can begin to feel your own existence as absolutely fundamental." I'm not trying to sell you on this idea in the sense of converting you to it. I just want you to play with it. I want you to think of its possibilities. I'm not trying to prove it. I'm just putting it forward as a possibility of life to think about. So then, let's suppose that you were able to every night to dream any dream that you wanted to dream, and that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time, or any length of time that you wanted to have. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. You would have every kind of pleasure during your sleep. And after several nights of 75 years of total pleasure each, you would say, well, that was pretty great. But now let's have a surprise. Let's have a dream which isn't under control, where something is going to happen to me that I don't know what it's going to be. And you would dig that, and you would come out of that, and you would say, wow, that was a close shave, wasn't it? Then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles to what you would dream. And finally, you would dream where you are now. You would dream the dream of living the life that you are actually living today. That would be within the infinite multiplicity of choices you would have of playing that you weren't God. Because the whole nature of the Godhead, according to this idea, is to play that he is not. So in this idea then, everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality. Not God in a political, kingly sense, but God in the sense of being the self. The deep down, basic, whatever there is. And you are all that. Only you are pretending that you are not. And I think this idea that we are all God, that we are all the Big Bang, that I am first, my first identity is the universe, and only secondary to be Chris. I'm the universe disguised as Chris, and everyone else is the universe disguised as this person. It helps us realize that we are all connected, that none of us are truly separate, that we are all flowers on the same tree, that we didn't come into this world, but we came out of it, a natural consequence of existence. And so, me being an outsider, me being different, me being, everyone is different, but me being so radically different and such an outlier, that is actually a natural part of nature. It's needed. It's needed like weather is needed. It's needed like rain is in the desert. If it didn't happen, it would be a different place. There would be no life, even if that rain is rare. So for those of you who feel like outsiders, you are here with a purpose. You are here to be you. You are here because you have something very important. You have an important part to play in this whole story. So please do your best to get out of your own way. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Thank you very much for listening.